Good evening, everybody. My name is Cassandra Holden. Welcome to Bombyx. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Before we get started, I want to give a round of applause to our amazing tech team, the folks from NOM. Thank you. The folks from Northampton Open Media. And we would not be here tonight without the incredible group of volunteers from the League of Women Voters. Thank you. I am delighted that Bombyx is hosting this event tonight. Way back when, it was often the case that small New England towns would build churches before they built municipal buildings. And these spaces were used for all different kinds of public gathering. Not just worship, but meetings, dinners, ways to bring the community together. It's deeply meaningful to welcome you all here tonight. I hope I hear and see many of you tomorrow at the second forum, and this feels as though we are simultaneously going forward and backward in time, living into the mission of what this space was always meant to be. I now have some flight attendant announcements. So for those of you who are new to this space, the restrooms are to my left, your right, down the hall. They're a bit of a jog, and they're there. They're great. They're awesome. They've got a mid-century vibe in the, yeah, you know, like that. And we're going to be renovating them real soon. So just, yeah, hang in there with us. We're so close. We also have an incredible audience of people watching from home. So as you are here in this space tonight, know that there are many people from across the community gathering with us virtually as well. So it's wonderful to feel all of this energy, both in person and remotely. And we couldn't have done that without the incredible team from Northampton Open Media. Yes. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to Kathy Campbell. She will be our moderator for this evening. She's going to share some information about how we're going to structure the event. Many of you have index cards, so if you're still percolating on what burning question you'd like to ask, this is your moment. You can jot them down. There'll be several opportunities for them to be collected throughout the evening. So we're really looking forward to your amazing questions and your participation in the forum tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Democracy requires inquiry and participation, so a huge thank you to all of you for being here or joining us online. And a special thank you to all of the candidates who are running for office in the Northampton 2025 municipal elections. These forums for the preliminary elections are organized by the League of Women Voters of Northampton. My name is Kathy Campbell, and I'm a member of the Amherst League. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization whose mission is to encourage informed and active citizen participation in government. Tonight's candidate forum is co-sponsored by several organizations that have already been mentioned: the Bombyx Center for Arts and Equity, the Northampton Open Media, which is streaming live tonight even, and as also a recording will be available on their website, I think by the end of the week or the beginning of next week, along with recorded interviews with each of the candidates. Tonight's forum is also co-sponsored by the Daily Hampshire Gazette and the Northampton Chamber of Commerce. I'd also like to thank our timekeepers who are right here in the front row, and all the volunteers from the League who've been working hard behind the scenes to make this happen. Our panelists tonight, far left, are Alexander McDougall of the Daily Hampshire Gazette and Jean Cherdek from the League of Women Voters of Franklin County. Jean will be presenting questions from the audience and questions that were submitted online through the Northampton League's website. If you would like to submit a question for the candidates tonight, please write it on the note card you were given at the door and pass it to the nearest aisle. If you're sitting on the aisle, you can just raise your note card and somebody will come and pick it up. Please address your questions to all the candidates, not just one of them. So we're going to begin with 2 of the 3 candidates for City Council from Ward 1. Michelle Ronco is traveling and unable to be with us tonight, but you will be able to find a 5-minute interview with him along with all the other candidates on the Northampton Open Media site. So we'll begin with 2-minute opening statements from the candidates. Then each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer each question from the panel, and we'll conclude with 1-minute closing statements. The timekeepers will hold up signs to tell you when you have 30 seconds and 15 seconds left remaining. And when they hold up the stop sign, please finish your sentence quickly. So please hold your applause until the end. This time belongs to our candidates. So let's give them our attention. So 2-minute opening statements in reverse ballot order. We'll start with Ms. Nabad.
Thank you. My name is Gwen Nabad, and hold on one second here. I'm Gwen Nabad, and I am the best candidate for Ward 1 City Council. I currently chair the Northampton Housing Partnership, and I'm active at Grow Food Northampton. Equity is the bedrock theme of my campaign. My daughter and I moved here in 2019 after a bout of homelessness, seeking affordability and stability. If I'm elected here, I will work with and for residents in Ward 1 to close inequality gaps in housing, climate, and education. In terms of housing, Northampton must continue to build and preserve housing at all income levels, with a special focus on affordable housing for lower income neighbors, especially seniors, people with disabilities, and working families. I will listen to residents across the ward's neighborhoods and understand your housing needs and goals. Climate and environment is very important to me. Northampton must continue to meet statewide climate goals. Climate justice and environmental health is crucial to the well-being of all residents. I understand these issues impact lives throughout my engagement with Grow Food Northampton and my advocacy for green space in multifamily housing. As a member of City Council, I will continue to advocate for a climate-resilient future. Education. Northampton has seen tremendous energy around our public schools since the COVID pandemic, as many children fell behind. I will advocate for sustainable schools that equitably invest in our most vulnerable students across all schools. With the removal of MCAS as a graduation requirement, our schools have an opportunity to think creatively and long-term about what we want public education in Northampton to be. So, thank you.
Please hold your applause. Thank you. Mr. Callahan.
Hi, folks. My name is Nico Latondra Callahan, and I'm running as a Democratic Socialist to represent the people of Ward 1. I live on Ridgewood Terrace with my wife, Catherine, and I grew up here in Western Massachusetts. I spent 15 years working at grocery stores, stocking shelves, baking bread. I have seen how local government often fails to serve working people in Northampton and the Greater Valley. Now I have the opportunity to give back to my community. I want to give a voice to people working the difficult, thankless jobs that keep Northampton running. I believe, in the words of C.L.R. James, every cook can govern. I am pro-union. Strong unions build strong communities, and I will use my office as a city councilor to support union labor requirements for city-funded projects and stand with city workers in contract negotiations. I'm pro-public schools and pro-public services. Kids are our future, and we must support teachers, students, and families with a strong budget. And we can have these things if we stand up to local bad landlords and private equity from out of town. Finally, I am a pro-immigrant and pro-LGBTQ, and will work to enforce and expand our city's sanctuary policies, keep ICE out of our city, and support rapid response and mutual aid networks. We can stand up to the Trump administration's terror. We can reduce the cost of living for working class people who make this city great, In New York City, Zoran Mamdani's campaign for mayor was only possible because of a mass movement willing to fight for a better world. I believe that movement is just as relevant here in Northampton. Thank you.
Thank you. The first question will be presented by Alexander.
Hello. Okay. Thank you both for being here tonight. You are two of 22 city council candidates this year, which is the highest number as far as I can see in at least the last 25 years. Can you tell me a little about what prompted you to want to run for city council at this time? And what do you hope to accomplish? You would both be first-time councilors. What do you hope to accomplish if elected to the council? Mr.
Latondra Kyle.
I was asked to run by some dear friends of mine in the socialist movement, and my first response was, can you get someone else to do it? But they couldn't, so here I am. I think that we can really build a city that works for working people, and I think that working people need to have a voice in city government, and I'm here to really try and bring the voices of workers into the government.
Ms. Nabab?
Sure, thank you. Well, I decided to run because I have some friends who also asked me to run. I've been involved within the community and in the city for the last 5 years since I got here. I've been especially involved with public housing tenants and supporting the organizing of local tenant organizations. And I've also been serving on the Northampton Housing Partnership, and I see the struggles that the city faces in terms of being affordable for people in Northampton and equitable. And so I would say that is the basis of my campaign, is supporting equity in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Jean?
Okay, first I want to say thank you for all your online submissions, all your cards. A lot of the questions covered many of the same topics, so we kind of unpacked them into one question. So we had 104 online submissions. We don't have that much time, but I wish we could ask them all. But again, we kind of put them together. So we made one question out of maybe 6, all worded differently. Okay, so first question. Would you support a trial run of the traffic changes proposed by the new town plan, and why or why not?
Let's see. Ms. Nabab, please start.
I can start. Okay, thank you. Well, I certainly wouldn't discourage a trial run. I'm not sure exactly how that would be done. I don't really know a whole lot about the exact design of downtown Main Street. But if it was to be, if it was to help people to feel better about Picture Main Street, so that we can get our infrastructure fixed, I could see doing a trial run, although it seems like we've been doing a trial run so far in terms of what is being done on Strong Ave there, with the whole area being cut off and just being all restaurants. And then when you come through near the bridge, it's just down to 2 lanes. So I would say that is somewhat of a trial run, and I know that we did do some trial runs a few years back, and so I wouldn't discourage it. Thank you.
And Mr. Latondra?
Yeah, I would have to sort of see what the details were on a trial run. I don't know if that means like chalking out and putting up a bunch of cones on the street and sort of like just seeing how it works. That seems like totally doable. Picture Main Street is a very divisive issue. I like some of the infrastructure upgrades, but I think it's pretty clear that the process became kind of opaque, and unfortunately there's sort of like a lot of bitterness. The city didn't get enough buy-in on the project. I hope to bring a level of transparency and sort of openness to city government so that we can have these conversations out in the open, out in public, and not behind closed doors. Thank you.
Thank you. Alexander?
Thank you. One of the more pressing issues over the last 2 years has been the school budget. Advocates have been saying that there's a need for higher school spending. There were cuts and reductions in services over the last 2 years. Do you support higher school spending as compared to what is currently being done in school budgets? And if so, how do you plan to support that increase in spending?
Ms. Nabad, would you start on this one too, please?
Sure. So, of course, I support funding for schools, and I have 3 children who required early education plans, and I know that it's a struggle, and it's really painful when you feel that your child isn't getting what they need. You know, right now, the city of Northampton spends the largest amount of its budget on the schools. It's definitely an increase from what we saw when the last mayor was serving. It's increased more, and so has inflation. I think that one of the issues that we've had in Northampton is the ESSER funding. The ESSER funding kind of blew everything up so that there was extra money for a little while, and then when it wasn't there anymore, it was all the more painful to see it go. In terms of funding more, I don't know if it would be overrides, but I think that, you know, we need to fund all of our departments. We need to make sure that all of our workers are staying in place in the DPW and things like that. And so I do support funding the schools fully. However, I think we'd have to figure out how that could be done without ruining our credit rating. Thank you.
And Mr. Kyling.
Our children are the future of the city, and when public services are cut, the wealthiest can send their kids to private school or hire private tutors, while the working class are left with schools stripped of resources. I support the strong budget, which was supported by the school committee and the teachers union. In order to fund it, we want the city to stop underestimating revenue and budget accordingly. I want the city to opt into additional powers so that we can have a participatory budget, or the city council to opt in, excuse me, so we can have a participatory budget like they have in Boston. We also want to expand the tax base by driving down the commercial and residential vacancy rates. A vacancy registry such as the one they have in Fitchburg would be a great asset in this fight. We also need to push the state to allow municipalities to implement vacancy taxes so we can put further pressure on landlords like Eric Sewer who are holding our city hostage. Thank you.
Please hold your applause. Thank you. Jean.
Okay, this was a pretty popular question. Northampton is home to a large branch of L3 Harris, the 6th largest weapons manufacturer in the U.S., which makes missiles, surveillance, weaponry, and parts integral to nuclear weapons launches. Do you believe L3 Harris should be allowed to operate in Northampton? If not, would you support a city ordinance banning the production of such weapons in Northampton and a commitment to investments in ethical jobs?
Mr. Alexandre Cahill.
I would support such a ban. I think the city should really look into more divestment from war, genocide, extractive industries, and look to fund and invest in, you know, greener things that are just kinder than blowing up, you know, innocent women and children overseas. Thank you.
Ms. Nabad.
I would support a ban on L3 Harris. However, I'd also like to point out that as it stands right now, this is a private business, and it pays taxes, and it employs a lot of people in our community. And for a little while, there was a temporary tax break, but they no longer get that tax break. However, I do not support war, and I am against genocide, and so, yeah, thank you.
Alexander.
Thank you. The city currently plans to convert the former First Baptist Church downtown, first acquired in 2023, into the Community Resilience Hub that would work to serve the city's unhoused population as well as provide shelter during climate-related emergencies. Do you support the ongoing process of building the Resilience Hub? Do you feel it's the best way to address those issues? And if you don't feel that way, is there a better way?
Mr. Latondra-Kyle.
I do support funding building the Resilience Hub. The location and the manner in which the church was purchased, obviously, once again, seems like there's a breakdown in transparency. And I would like to look into that and, again, have the process be open. But I do support funding additional services to help the homeless.
Ms. Nabad.
Sure, thank you. The hub, also referred to as Churchgate, is funded, the purchase was funded by ARPA funds in response to the worldwide pandemic. And during the pandemic, there were many homeless people who struggled, and stores were closed, and they had no safe place to go. It was also funded with community development block grants, the CARES Act, and cannabis impact fees. And so it took no money away from the city budget. In response to homelessness, the needs of the community, I believe that it could become a really fantastic hub for people that are in need in the community. I think that we'd have to find a way to fund it with grants and other ways now that we're under this federal government. And so I continue to support the spirit and the potential that can come out of the community hub. Thank you.
Thank you. Jean?
Housing prices are far too high, and young adults are increasingly being priced out of living here. In order to increase housing supply and drive down prices, what will you do to maximize the number of new housing units, both market rate and affordable?
Ms. Nabad, would you start, please?
Sure. This is work that we've been doing on the Northampton Housing Partnership, and there's so much more to do. The city needs to, if we don't have it already, we should remove minimum size lots, and we need to produce middle-income housing so that we can welcome families into the city. Also, we need to produce, we need to have more of a supply. We need to have more subsidized housing. We also need to have homes where people can downsize in a way that is with dignity. And so the other piece of that is also stability. We need to have a way to enable people to stay in their housing instead of getting into trouble after long periods of houselessness and not having transition and support services in place. And there's so much more I think we could do for the houseless. Thank you.
Mr. Latondra-Kyle.
Yeah, so I already mentioned looking into things like a vacancy registry or vacancy taxes in order to, again, increase the supply of housing by putting pressure on these landlords who are letting these properties sit and rot. Northampton has always been this town that's a big city for the arts and everything, but if the artists can't afford to move in here and live for cheap while they make their art, or if they're working 3 jobs, they'd have no time to make their art. It's not going to work out. So we also need to be building new housing, but it needs to be actually affordable, not just necessarily market rate affordable. And we really need to do due diligence and make sure that these things are getting done with good union labor, providing good jobs to people in our community. And yeah. Thank you.
Alexander.
This is a question from the audience. Can you share a story of a time of when you had to uphold your principles even in when they were unpopular and when it was hard to do so?
Oh, Ms. Nabad, can you start on this one too, please?
Sure. I guess I'll just speak from my own personal experience. I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and it was really hard to leave. I was a young teen mom, and I didn't think that I could do it on my own. And the bottom line was that I had to save my family. I had to save myself, and I had to save my child. And even though all my life I had this vision of having a family with a mom and a dad and all of that, I had to accept that I was going to do it alone. And so I would say that that was one of the times in my life where I had to stand by my own principles of having a healthy family life, even if it wasn't the one that I had imagined. Thank you.
And Mr. Latondra Collin?
I will talk about the 2019 Stop and Shop strike. I didn't work at Stop and Shop, but I worked at a different non-union grocery store. And every single day after work, I drove over to the picket line in Holyoke with my friends from DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, and we went out there, we supported them, we raised money for them. And, you know, I could have gotten in trouble, I'm sure, at my employer for going to jump on a picket line of the competition. But I understood that it was not just those workers that was going to get rolled over by the management. It was all of us. So if they took a loss, we were all going to take a loss. And I felt the need to really just take my spare time and take it down there with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Jean?
Where do you stand on more school funding to increase the amount of paraprofessionals in the classroom?
Mr. Latondra Collin first.
Well, I'm for it. I was an IEP kid growing up, and, you know, we don't want the people who can't afford to advocate for their kids, don't have the time to advocate for their kids. We don't want those kids to not get the support they need. So I am in favor of increasing funding for paraeducators. Thank you.
And Ms. Nabad.
Sure. I guess I would say that I'm not too familiar specifically with all of the details of the school budget. I've paid more attention to what's happening in the city in terms of housing. However, you know, if it's feasible, then I would support more funding for paras. Thank you.
Alexander.
Over the last 2 years, there have been several issues, some of which we've already discussed, that have been controversial in the city. They've led to some significant divisions, both within the community and within local government. It's led to certain tensions. Emotions have run high during meetings. There's been moments of disruption. Do you feel there is a need for more civil discourse within city politics, or are these tensions and divisions just a healthy exercise in democracy?
Mr. Latondra Collin.
Yeah. I'm here to work with everyone in the city to solve the crisis of affordability. We're going to have disagreements. End of the day, we all live in Northampton, and we have to keep living here. When I was collecting signatures to get on the ballot, I ran into Gwen here, and we signed each other's papers. We were running against each other. But, you know, we share values on housing and the environment. I'm not going to, like, get in a fight with her or something. Like, this is crazy. You know, like, people are exploited, people are oppressed. When they're ignored, they have a right to get angry. And I'm never going to dismiss someone who's saying something that is right just because of the way that they said it. And I'll always stand up for workers, tenants, students, and the elderly in this town. At the same time, I'm also inspired and informed by the words of the late Michael Brooks, which is to be kind to people and ruthless with systems. And personal attacks on individuals are not going to change structural problems. Thank you.
And Ms. Nabad.
Thank you. Okay, so I support democracy. I love to listen to people talk. As Nico just said, we support each other mutually, no matter what happens in this election. I don't think that violent communication is a way to solve problems. And I think this is a very small city. We all have to live here and be happy here. And I would like to be happy here. And I want everyone to be happy here. And so I would say that Some of the politics that I've seen in Northampton is just really hurtful. And even if it's not me saying those things, I still experience that guilt. And I think that we can do better than that in this city. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we'll move to closing statements. And Mr. Latendre Carlin, please go first.
So in closing, I'd like to thank the organizers of this debate and my fellow candidates for answering the questions. On September 16th, I humbly ask you for your vote to advance the general election in November. Our city is suffering from a cost of living crisis, and we need to empower working class residents to create the city we deserve. These problems are structural, not personal, and every single one of us needs to come together to solve them. Let's build a city government that supports workers, public schools, and public services. A city that protects the most vulnerable from harm. A city where you can afford not just to live, but to thrive. Let's build a paradise that we can afford. Thank you.
And Ms. Navad.
Sure. So if elected, I will continue to work on housing, climate, and the schooling equity. And if elected to City Council, I'll work tirelessly for all residents of Northampton in housing, climate, and education, and advocate for everyone, all students, and especially the most vulnerable in our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's applaud. Thank you. We'll take a 10-minute break and start again promptly at 7:17. Ward 3 candidates are invited to come up to the podium, please. Okay, let me see.
You were calling them Mr. and Ms. respectively?
It's my preference, yes.
Right. Is it all right if you call me Mix? Otherwise, just calling me by my last name is fine. No honorific.
please take your seats again so that we can get started promptly.
Hi, in Brandon.
Good evening again. I've been asked to remind you that the League of Women Voters has a table in the back with handouts and other information that you can take home with you. So please stop by there when you have an opportunity or on your way out. Again, my name is Kathy Campbell, and I'm from the Amherst League of Women Voters. These forums are co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Northampton, the Bombyx Center for Arts and Equity, Northampton Open Media, the Daily Hampshire Gazette, and the Northampton Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to point to the timekeepers and thank the timekeepers in the front row and all the people, all the volunteers who have been working to make tonight happen. Our panelists are Alexander McDougall of the Daily Hampshire Gazette and Jean Cherdak from the League of Women Voters. Jean is presenting questions from the audience. If you have a question that you'd like to have presented, please write it on a card and pass it to the nearest aisle, and someone will pick it up from you. Okay, so now we have 3 candidates for the City Council from Ward 3. And again, we'll begin with 2-minute opening statements from each of the candidates, and then each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question from the panel, and we will conclude with 1-minute closing statements. The timekeepers have warning signs for 30 and 15 seconds, and when they hold up the stop sign, please finish your sentence quickly. Thank you. And audience, please hold your applause until the end. This time belongs to the candidates, and let's give them our full attention. So, opening statements, we're going to go in reverse ballot order. And the first opening statement will be from Ms. Thaler.
Evening, folks. Ace Taylor, they, them, running for Ward 3 City Council. And I want to start tonight by saying, can you put your hand up if you own your home? Good portion of the audience. Now, can you put your hand up if you rent your home? Okay. Less. Northampton is about 45% renters, and so is Ward 3, so a little disproportionate on the homeowner side here tonight. So you might have guessed that I came to this through housing. I was part of the Northampton Housing Partnership for 4 years. I helped write the bill that banned brokers' fees from tenants, and that's my starting lens for what I want to see for Ward 3 and for the city as a whole. I want things to be affordable. I want city services to be fully funded, especially the DPW, especially the schools, and I want there to be transparency and function in our government. It's something that, you know, in the past, I think we had a bit too much lockstep, a bit too much everyone agreeing, and now I think we have a bit too much my way or the highway, causing us to lock up in a different way. So I want to see progress, and the way I want to see progress is through metrics. We've got climate goals that we publish that we say, all right, we're going to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030, and here's what we're going to do. I'd love to see that with, okay, let's have 100 more affordable housing units by 2035. Let's have the DPW fully staffed and funded by next year. What can we do to achieve that, and how are we meeting our goals? Are things that I would love to see us start to do. There'll be more things that I go into in detail, but that's the starting point of why I think you should vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lazelle.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laurie Loisel. I'm happy to be here in this beautiful space Thanks to the audience, to the other candidates, the League, the Gazette, Northampton Open Media, for making this democracy in action happen. I'm pretty excited about it. I'm running for Ward 3's council because I have the skills and temperament to help our city in a time when democracy at the federal, state, and local level is under threat. As a Northampton resident of over 40 years, most of it in Ward 3, I'm deeply committed to this city and would like to help it be as strong as possible. As a journalist, I seek out facts and truth and data. I question and probe. To the degree that any human being can, I strive to recognize my own assumptions and challenge myself to listen to people who think differently than I do. I see the City Council as a steward of the public services provided by the city, responsible for making sure they serve everyone equitably, that they are delivered efficiently and live up to their potential. A well-run city providing vibrant schools, support for small businesses, reliable emergency services, solid infrastructure, plentiful housing, and affordable housing requires understanding the work of every city department and respecting the people we hire to run them. Northampton is not a wealthy city. In a state ranking of per capita income, it's 243 out of 341 communities. So it means working hard to consider the trade-offs that are both very real and very difficult as we set priorities. My approach to issues we face would be to reach out to the people most affected, ask a lot of questions, listen to their answers, and listen to residents and experts, and think through what might be unintended consequences. I would kick the tires, look under the hood, and work collaboratively, because that is really the only way to get things done. I'm confident that I can represent the residents of Ward 3 and work well with the rest of the City Council. That's why I'm here tonight, and that's why I ask for your vote.
Thank you. Alexander will present the first question. Oh, sorry. Ms. Rothenberg.
No problem. I know we had two in the last panel. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to tell you a little about me, since we'll get into policy and the questions. I came here from the Berkeley Hills of California 10 years ago, and I married into a Polish farming family that came here after the Second World War. They're cafeteria workers and custodians after that. And we have 3 beautiful kids who go to the Bridge Street Elementary School. And we're autistic, all of us. I come from a long line of hardworking, brave people. It's in my blood. My great-grandpa was kidnapped by the British Royal Navy from Norway, and he escaped in the Monterey Bay and swam ashore. His friend drowned in the kelp. He was naked when he arrived and became a California citizen. The next generation was railway hobos during the Great Depression, came out from Iowa, and they started a business in the financial district. The next generation was cannon fodder in World War II in the Battle of the Bulge, and they came back and went all the way up the Pacific Gas and Electric Company to procurement and auditing. Then the baby booming generation got to have some peace and stability. They became a public school teacher and a student of Dr. Suzuki in Japan, which meant that I got to become a cellist, and I got to tour the world as a child, performing in the finest concert halls. And so I found, after doing all of that all I wanted to do was make the world a better place, but that music was not a specific enough language for the audiences I was speaking to. So I found a way to enter public service, first becoming a court stenographer so I could learn how we debate and what we need to work on, and then entering public service as a city councilor. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, the first question will come from Alexander.
Thank you all for being here. So you 3 are 3 of 22 city council candidates. That's the most we've had in at least 25 years. Can you talk a little about why now you felt, 2 of you who are running for the first time, why you felt now was a good time to try to run for public office, why you felt the need to maybe run again for a second term, and then what do you hope to accomplish if elected or re-elected to city council?
Ms. Rothenberg, will you start out on this one?
Sure. So I was first elected in the last term. I first ran for office because I want to help my community connect with resources, and I was already doing that as an individual on Graves Avenue. When I got to City Council, I found that there were some broken links in a chain that help us connect the community to resources. And the main one was, I felt, representation from the city councilors. So I really made it my business to try to emphasize that I can be the voice of Ward 3 if I listen to everyone and I come and speak with courage on their behalf. Even if it's unpopular with the colleagues at my table or the mayor, it's surely my job to simply represent my ward. And so I have done that. And what I found was that the public needs help with their schools, which I'm sure we'll talk about more. They need help with their housing. They need help with their roads and their sidewalks. And the downtown businesses need help. All in all, it's just becoming far too expensive for so many of your neighbors, and it's really time for this government to be making your lives easier. You must be prioritized, and your representatives must prioritize you.
Mix Taylor?
So I mentioned being on the housing partnership. I got a little frustrated with how little they could do, and I contemplated running last cycle round. I didn't end up doing that because financially I wasn't in a position to do that. I was teaching, I didn't have the 20 hours a week to dedicate, and at the time the stipend wasn't enough for me to afford to take an hourly cut. Now I'm happy to say that I have a more flexible job. I work retail and I'm also a tailor, as well as the increased stipend for being a city councilor lets me afford to take the hour cuts that I will need to take in order to do this job right. The other reason is I didn't feel well represented by either of my colleagues here, and I felt that I could do a strong job in making Northampton a place that is, well, able to be afforded by the people who do work here. One of the biggest things that I want to do is to take steps to make that true. It's not going to happen in 2 years, but like I said, I want to make those goals public and stick to them, hold our city government accountable to them, and particularly to all the studies in the past about things like affordability, where we have ideas, we have plans, and we haven't implemented them. Thank you.
And Ms. Lozelle?
Could you repeat the question, Alex?
Yes, it's just what prompted you to want to run for city council at this time, and what do you hope to accomplish if you are elected?
Okay, thanks. Well, I would say what prompted me was what's going on the federal level made me feel like I want to do something. Last time Trump was elected, I got very involved in the sanctuary movement. This time it seemed like the attacks were coming in a much more diffuse way, and I thought, and I'm about to retire from my job, so I thought I had time, and I thought I want to help my local community. I just want to put my politics local. So that's sort of why I decided to. I want to say that I moved to Northampton in 1983, and I lived in 4 different apartments in Ward 3. And then when I bought my house in 1992, it was through a low-income home buyers program. So I feel like I know what it's like to live here and not be able to afford high rent. And I feel like we have a housing crisis. I want to work on that. I also think it's a very exciting time to be part of the city government. I think that Picture Main Street is very exciting. I think that when the Resilience Hub gets going, it'll be it's kind of audacious. We'll see what it's going to bring and how it's going to work. It's kind of never been done before. So I think there's sort of a lot of exciting things happening in the city, and I want to be part of moving it forward and supporting small businesses as well. And yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you. Jean?
Wealthy schools like Brown and Dartmouth pay roughly 0.1% of their endowments each year to their local municipalities. These are a recognition of the fact that they are major local landowners, and yet are tax exempt. As we face financial challenges, will you commit to aggressively pushing for a similar annual pilot payment from Smith College of roughly $2.6 million per year, or 0.1% of their $2.6 billion endowment?
Ms. Loisel, will you start with us?
Sure. I don't know where to start with that one because I don't know where those numbers come from. But I mean, I feel like the city needs more money, and if Smith College can pay it, yeah, let's see it. Let's have it. But I just don't know where those numbers come from, and I would need to study that more to know really to be able to give you an informed answer.
Ms. Rothenberg?
Sure. Actually, off the top of my head, I think the number that has been discussed in groups that are organizing around this and studying this, that maybe $6 million is closer to their fair share, and I certainly support that. I think that the City Council and the Mayor should both be very clear with Smith that we appreciate them, but we also appreciate if they live up to part of their slogan and part of our slogan, which both emphasize education. And as we'll get into, the schools in this city right now are not meeting the bare minimum needs of the kids. These are actually civil rights violations that are going on right now, where kids who are disabled are not getting the access to be able to learn to read and write. And if you think about this in terms of envisioning someone with a physical disability, their parents may be told there's a ramp at the school and they're able to get into the classroom. And many months may go by before the child tells their parent, actually, I've been sitting outside the whole time, there is no ramp. If Smith understands that this is happening, if Smith understands that our sidewalks are not usable, if Smith understands all of these kinds of civil rights violations, I'm sure that their wonderful president that they have now would be very willing to work with a mayor who asks boldly for them to contribute to a thriving community.
Ms. Taylor?
So as someone who's a Smith alum who is here because of Smith, absolutely I support them restarting the pilot program. Them taking it on a number of years ago is what helped us fund the housing trust that we used to have to go towards affordable housing. I do also want to clarify that, you know, you did correct yourself and say that Smith is not a landlord. They are. They rent out a number of units, subsidized ones, to their employees, which are then subsidized by the rents of the folks who, you know, don't work there. While West Street is not part of Ward 3, there is organizing going on right now specifically saying, hey, rent hikes that have been 25% or more of the rent up is absolutely unacceptable. And there's a lot of organizing there that's happening, which is, you know, something that I want to talk to tenants, I want to talk to tenant organizations and do that. If we can get Smith to be on board with this pilot, which, yeah, I want to fight tooth and nail to do, the question of where that money goes, does it go to education, does it go to housing, does it go to yes or no, that's going to be another conversation that we're going to have. And money solves problems in a lot of ways, and I think that would be a great thing for Smith to do to support the Northampton that's they're in. Thanks.
Thank you. Alexander?
Yes, there was a little talk a while of the Picture Main Street project. That is planned to begin on 2026 and is expected to drastically remake the city's downtown and cause some significant disruption. Several businesses that are along Main Street have expressed concerns about how this project will affect their bottom line. Do you support the Picture Main Street project, and how would you support businesses who may be affected by the project?
Ms. Taylor, would you start us?
So, like Nico in Ward 1, I have extremely mixed feelings about Picture Main Street. I think we absolutely need to redo the sewers. We need to absolutely redo the sidewalks, which is the core of this project. The bigger changes of revitalization were done so that we could take advantage of state funding rather than paying for it all ourselves. And on paper, this sounds great. That said, I've been involved in the feedback and listening process, and I have found it severely lacking. That's an area that I would like to see changed and done better now, done better in the future. There's a lot of legitimate concerns about things like safety of bike lanes, and as you said, businesses weathering this construction. Now, I think given the state of downtown, construction is going to happen regardless of whether it's Picture Main Street or another project in order to redo the sidewalks and sewers alone. I'd want to see meaningful ways of supporting downtown businesses, soft ways helping drive business, things like the Summer on Strong events and other music events like that, as well as harder ways, such as grants for folks to stay afloat if they can say, hey, here's my sales, they should be this, they're actually this, I'm in danger of closing, because as we all know, maintenance is a lot easier than creating something new. Thank you.
Ms. Rothenberg?
Ward 3 as a whole does not support the Picture Main Street project. And so as their representative and as someone running as their representative, I cannot either. Although when I first ran for office, I did support it, as I said on the Bill Newman show, because my source of information had been folks like Bill Dwight and the mayor and Jim Nash. But as I've learned more about it, I have concerns. I have concerns about cost overruns. I don't think it will be free for us. It's already not been free. It's already cost millions, and I think it will cost millions more. I think that's severely impacting the way we are running our city. I think we may be saving a lot of money for that. I'm concerned about the businesses who have been in our community, some of them since the 70s, and run on a 2% margin, some of them. I don't think they will survive this, and I think it's callous to say we can simply replace them. I'm concerned about bike safety. I don't think that has been fleshed out enough. I think the intersections, which are the most dangerous part of biking, will still be dangerous. And I think that the public transportation is going to be negatively impacted. But we can and must do many things to invest in our downtown, and that should be part of our normal working capital, including fixing our sidewalks, our crosswalks, our sewer, which cost comparisons have not been provided to us to show us that it's actually cheaper to do it this way, by the way. And finally, to do real economic development, to reopen our venues, to invest in code upgrades. And I agree to make Summer on Strong permanent.
So there were 8 community forums, 5 meetings with downtown stakeholders, and many council subcommittees that took this up. This has been talked about for 2 decades in various forms. Complete Streets, Sustainable Northampton Plan, the Municipal Transportation Plan, the 2023 Council Resolution in support of it, which was unanimous. It's been talked about a lot. So it's just not accurate to say feedback has not been given. And I was at a house party recently where a person said that they had gone to many of these, I don't know if they were called charrettes, but meetings where they talked about the plan. And every time she went to another meeting, the designers had incorporated some of the comments. So the design team was quite responsive to the feedback. I think that we have 100-plus-year-old water and sewer pipes under Main Street that need to be replaced. They're going to be replaced as part of this, and it has to be done. There's no way around it, and we're getting some significant state and federal dollars to support it. So it makes fiscal sense. Because of climate change, it just makes sense to have a bigger tree canopy on Main Street, encourage biking and walking, and just welcome people downtown more. Safer, DOT has said Northampton's Main Street is in the top 5% of crash clusters for pedestrians and bicyclists, and this will make it safer. So I think on all levels, this is a really good thing for the city.
Thank you. Jean?
What are you willing to sacrifice in your life in order to devote the many hours necessary to be a city councilor?
Did you get that? Well, Ms. Loisel?
I am about to retire, so I have time. And so it doesn't feel like that much of a sacrifice, going from working full-time to being on the city council and figuring out how to live a retired life. So it doesn't seem that hard. And having said that, though, I've seen people on the council and I see how much homework it is. I just happen to, I think I'm a little bit of a city council nerd and a city of Northampton nerd. So I find what is going on in the city fascinating. And I feel like my 3 decades of working as a journalist prepare me for this work. And it feels like a public service, and that's kind of how I felt about being a journalist, too.
Mix Taylor?
So I've got the kind of brain variation, shall we say, that means I deal a lot with spreadsheets and schedules and making sure that I do have enough time to do this. I ran the numbers and said, yeah, I can dedicate 20 hours a week if I cut these hours at work, if I cut these hobbies and reduce them this, that, the other way. That's going to vary week to week, of course, but I did the math for myself. One thing I will say, though, is I am not willing to sacrifice everything for this job. I got the chance to talk to every single sitting city councilor, and one of the pieces of advice I got the most was set boundaries on your time, set limits on your time. You can absolutely devote all of yourself to this, and that would wreck me. And I'm not a stranger to burnout. It's happened to me before. And giving my all to this at the expense of my mental and physical health means I would be a bad representative. So yeah, I'm gonna give 20 hours a week. Some weeks I'm gonna give 40, and I'm gonna set limits for myself because you don't deserve me at my burnt out.
And Ms. Rothenberg?
What a thoughtful question, because it's true that it does require a lot of sacrifice. When I first started this job, I had a very well-paying job in the courts, and I've had to sacrifice that to give time to this. I've also spent my privilege in other ways, including social capital, to say things that are hard for some people and uncomfortable for some people to hear. If you take that kind of stance politically in a town that has a lot of nonprofits, you have to be ready to be able to keep some distance between yourself and those nonprofits that you may love, because they can't be involved in politics. As I get older, I sacrifice sleep less, but still sometimes for this job. 20 hours is not enough to do it right now. I usually spend about 80 hours, but my hope is that you will deliver to this council more colleagues who will help share the work with me, that we will change our budget so that the council has more resources, our own in-house experts, so I don't have to track them down. And also, I want to remind everyone that the community is a great help, and the work is so much easier when you share it. The things that I won't sacrifice are my family, my integrity, and the interests of my constituents.
Thank you. Alexander?
One of the more prominent issues over the last 2 years has been the school budget. Over the last 2 years, budgets have been passed that have led to reduction in staff, reduction in services. Do you support a way for these schools to have do you support a higher school spending budget for schools? And if so, how do you plan on accomplishing that?
Ms. Rothenberg, will you start?
Sure. So to give my answer some context, I want to tell you a little bit about what I've learned about the school budget, which is that it's not dramatically increased as much as the Gazette would have you believe or the mayor would have you believe. The prior mayor and the prior superintendent of schools spent down a savings account that belonged to the schools when they opened up a new program in 2018 to include disabled children in the classrooms. And when they left, that was the real fiscal cliff that the mayor hit. And rather than right-sizing the normal portion of our budget to make up for that lost infusion that was getting papered over by the prior leadership, this mayor thought that she would right-size the schools by shrinking their staffing. And these devastating losses we experienced a year and a half ago were only worth about $2.5 million. And we finished the year with a $12 million surplus. And it looks to me as though we're about to finish with another $10 million surplus. This is not necessary. This is why I hearken back to the Picture Main Street project. And I'm wondering, is that why we're generating such big surpluses at the expense of our children being able to read, write, and do math and have their civil rights respected? This is unacceptable for our community. And I know that you're a community that values education, so I want you to know that it's fully possible to fully fund our schools. Thank you.
Ms. Loisel?
So Northampton spends $19,600 per pupil annually. You can find that on the DESE website, and you'll see that many schools spend more, but many schools spend less. School funding is a huge part of our total city budget, over half the operating budget, and that's as it should be. A school, how a city supports its schools is kind of a proxy for its values. But I don't see how anyone can doubt the commitment of the city to the schools given that. And it's also great to hear that in a U.S. News and World Report ranking, Northampton High School was listed as 59th in the state, higher than comparable schools in our region. Those are facts. It's also a fact that Proposition 2.5 put a stranglehold on revenue growth in cities and towns across our Commonwealth. I moved to Northampton in 1983. It was a year after Proposition 2.5 passed, and I saw over the years when I was working at the Gazette as a reporter and an editor, the consternation every year when the school budget came out and how disturbing that was and what's the word I'm trying to say? Destabilizing. And then in 2013, a former mayor began a plan in which, 15 seconds, okay. This is a hard question to answer. He began a plan in which he would ask the city for an override with a promise that this money wouldn't be spent in 1, 2, or even 3 years, that it would be spread out over the years. And all of a sudden, there was stability, if not fully funded schools. And I'll try to find time later to finish that answer.
Thank you. Mix Taylor.
So to go back to the original question, yes, I absolutely support increasing school funding and restoring the job positions that were lost, particularly since a lot of the cuts from this year, last year, previous years have been done in a manner of convenience of who was retiring rather than in a thoughtful way of what positions, would be least destabilizing to lose. It's also a matter of workers' rights in that year to year, teachers should not be afraid that they are going to lose their jobs. I think we can take it as read that everybody cares about the education of kids. As to how to do it, I think it needs to be done, and it needs to be done thoughtfully. Some ways are appealing to the state for higher funding. Some ways are doing operational audits on other budgets to see if there's places that are being double funded. I want to be cautious about this because some of this year-to-year excess has been from unfilled positions at the TPW. And I very much want to fill those positions and not lose them. It would be very easy to say, yeah, we can save so much more money by cutting these positions. And we all know how bad the sidewalks are right now. So yes, I want to increase it. There needs to be multiple ways of doing so, and it needs to be thoughtful about the consequences that come from the different methods that we can pursue. Thanks.
Thank you. Jean. Did we get through everybody?
What is your position on the city's status as a sanctuary city? Will you continue to oppose ICE from unlawfully deporting U.S. citizens, including children? If your answer is to support ICE, how do you morally defend your position?
Ms. Rothenberg.
I fully support being a sanctuary city. I also note that one of the mayor's appointees is on record as not, as a select board member in her own town. I also am concerned about whether our police officers agree with me. And I would really like the city council and the mayor to work with our police to have a clear understanding of who they serve and who they protect and what we want them to do in this situation. The same goes for the school superintendent and the teachers and the bus drivers. We as a community in these unprecedented times have an incredible opportunity to take care of each other, to use our resources wisely, our financial resources, our land, our buildings, our employees. We have strong shared value, and we have a great deal of sovereignty, but we must work hard to make sure that our government is helping us and facilitating our ability to keep each other safe, because I know that we all as individuals are doing everything that we can. But I also know that one of my opponents here is comfortable with a DA's office that looks like ICE downtown in this moment.
Ms. Taylor?
I'm going to assume it's a strong yes across the board for us being sanctuary cities, and a strong no across the board to supporting ICE. I have never been faster to sign a petition in my life when I got one in my political inbox asking, hey, would you support a resolution that makes our schools protected locations, that makes it so that no school employee will work with ICE? And I about near burned off my fingers saying yes. I want to do that. I want to expand that. As Councilor Rothenberg said, I want the police to have on an agreement that no, they will not work with ICE. Full stop. I'd also love to reduce things like traffic stops, because those are one of the biggest ways that immigrants and folks who just are mistaken for immigrants get on the radar of places like ICE and get illegally deported. So yeah, I want actionable methods of supporting immigrants, of supporting everybody, particularly those who are being disenfranchised by the gentleman in the federal office.
Ms. Lizzo?
Yeah, I totally support Northampton being a sanctuary city, and I am a member of the Unitarian Society, and I was the president of the board when we became a sanctuary congregation and took a woman who was in danger of being deported, who had 3 children, into sanctuary. And that became a big project and involved a lot of people working together, and it was an interfaith effort. And I really saw the community come together to support this, and I know Northampton really wants this city to be a sanctuary city. So yeah.
Thank you. Alexander?
Over the last 2 years, there have been several issues that some of which have already been discussed, that have led to significant division both within the community and within local government. These divisions have led to some tensions and moments of disruption within certain meetings, both within the city council and the school committee. Do you feel there is a need for more civil discourse within city politics, or are these tensions simply just a healthy exercise in democracy?
Let's see, Ms. Taylor, will you start?
So, like I said in my intro, I think we have swung too far one way from being too far the other way. I think we absolutely need continued disagreements. We absolutely need continuous votes no or abstentions on things that we don't agree with. That said, I think we also need to debate the policies, criticize the policies, and not the people. It's important to have an environment where people can feel that they can safely disagree without being attacked on social media, without having their personal address revealed to others, or personal email address. So it's a balance, and we are going to constantly be tested against that balance. It is important that if someone is speaking in anger, you're still listening to them, particularly as a city councilor. It's also important that when inevitably I speak in anger. I apologize for the hurt that I caused. It's a two-way street. Both of these aspects are important, and it very much is about having disagreement always, or when, things are disagreed about, and not being afraid to disagree or to agree. Thanks.
Ms. Loizano?
I am concerned about Northampton like I am concerned about our country, and it's not about lack of civility as much as a misinformation. And I think it has to do with journalism, it has to do with social media, but in the void caused by this lack of shared facts, I think people start doing personal attacks, and I don't think that gets us anywhere. But I really feel concerned about us not being on the same playing field in terms of what's true and what are the facts here. And there was one other thing I was going to say. This is, for me, not about people having strong feelings. It's about people not telling the truth. It's also about people demeaning other people and being condescending and lecturing and not working together. I don't think you get anything done if you don't work with the people that you're sitting at the table with. So I believe in collaborative working relationships and respectful working relationships.
Ms. Rothenberg?
I think this topic is difficult for Northampton because so many of us consider ourselves part of the same political party. And so it's hard to understand why we might disagree with each other. I think I can tell you, as the person who has been probably most cast as sort of an outsider, that we still get a lot done. And this is what democracy looks like. This is what representative democracy looks like, right? You see it at home when you're watching your national senators debate, right? None of you are asking anyone to be nicer in how they do their work. You're asking them to be stronger. You're asking them to be more effective. You're asking them to stand up for people. And so, for example, Ward 3, with the community and with some of a minority coalition on council, even with this difficult uphill battle of working within our own party to disagree, we were able to get more firefighters, more EMS, more teachers, more money for sidewalks. This works. I would love for it to be an even happier feeling at the next term, depending on what collection of people that you elect. But I do want you to understand that when you send 1 out of 4,000 people to stand up and represent you, you have to trust that that person can set their personal feelings aside and say what you need them to say.
Thank you. Jean?
Compared to neighboring cities and towns, Northampton seems to have a higher vacancy rate downtown. What is your plan to help businesses be more successful in downtown Northampton?
Ms. Loizal, would you start?
Sure. I don't know. I don't really know what the comparison is to other cities and towns, but I will say I think that Picture Main Street is going to help. I think there's going to be a process of construction that's going to be difficult, but there's a plan to do it in phases, and the streets will never be closed. And there's a lot of work being done to work with the businesses to make sure they're strong throughout the construction. And then I think afterwards, it'll be a place people want to be, kind of like Strong Avenue. I think Strong Avenue is a good example of what Main Street can be like. So I think just working with the city to, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought there. Working with the city to, keep businesses strong and vital. And I think, as I said, Picture Main Street will be a good thing to bring people downtown.
Ms. Rothenberg?
Sure. First, I just want to say to any business owners watching that we're so grateful to you. Local receipts make up about 1/3 of our revenue. That's one of the things that makes Northampton different from some of our neighboring communities and makes it possible to do things like fully fund our schools. For the vacancies, I think that we need to first bring in a real economic development director. And this is something that City Council does through appointments, just like you appoint someone to the Supreme Court and then it's confirmed. We confirm appointments to the mayor's cabinet. I would love to hear what they have to say. Obviously, they're a greater expert, but I hear from businesses that the parking enforcement is too aggressive, that the late parking fees and parking fees at all are not necessarily helping them. We need to be able to stabilize their rents. Perhaps we should own some of these things and bring the cost down so that it's more changing the market. We need better communication to let them know when their water is being shut off, which sometimes happens in the middle of a busy, full restaurant, which is unacceptable. We need to help them repair their sprinklers, so we're not shutting them down because they violate codes, but we're actually investing in keeping them open. And of course, we really need to open those venues, right? Whatever that's gonna look like. If that's gonna look like eminent domain, condemning a building, buying a building, or helping to grease the wheels and invest in getting new lighting or carpeting to help someone close on a deal. We really need to get those going.
Thanks, Taylor.
So in addition to having a sewer problem in that they're very old, Northampton has a sewer problem in that Eric Sewer owns so much of Northampton and refuses to rent it at a reasonable rate. So I would like to solve the sewer problems. One way that I can see doing that, which is going to be a trick legally, is to have a vacancy tax of if something is being left open and unfilled for more than 3 months, charge what the asking rent is to the owner until they can get it filled. I think this will pair nicely with what already exists in Northampton, which is an incentive for storefronts who have been vacant for more than 6 months of providing additional funds to businesses, filling them to help offset the costs of the sewer problem. I think there's a lot of other ways to look at increasing and improving local businesses. I mentioned one of, offering grants to keep businesses open that are at threat of closing. And I will admit to a little bit of self-interest here, as I am employed by one of said local businesses. So yeah, from the tax revenue to employing folks to work here to making it the place we chose to live, we absolutely do need to address the empty storefront problem.
Thank you. Alexander.
So there are several prominent planned housing developments in the city, including a 5-story apartment complex on the corner of Holly Street and Phillips Place, which is in Ward 3. There's plans on State Street near the former St. Mary's Church, and recently announced plans from Valley CDC at the former Registry of Deeds building on King Street. Do you support these housing developments or the city's approach to housing development, or is there a alternative way forward?
Let's see, Mix Taylor, would you start, please?
So there's a lot of new housing projects going up. A lot of them are market rate. For the record, what market rate means in Northampton is a 1-bedroom is $1,500. In order to afford that, you would need to be making $60K a month for that to be 30% of your income and be stable. Did I say that wrong? Yeah. Please take the correction as read, thank you. With a 2-bedroom being $2,100, meaning that it would take more than double my current income to be reasonably able to afford. So when new market rates apartments are coming up, and particularly when luxury condos are coming on and coming up, I have a hard time supporting them. And I say this as someone who has made housing my platform. I should be for more housing, but it needs to be, if not affordable in the legal sense, meaning subsidized by the government, affordable in the colloquial sense, as in 2 people making minimum wage can afford a 2-bedroom apartment. So I don't have a strong answer on if I support these specifically or don't. I want to find ways to make market rate reasonable, and so that market rate does mean reachable rather than what we have now.
Ms. Rothenberg?
Thank you. So usually when I'm doing my work, it has two components, right? One is understanding what are the needs and interests of the community, and the other is a research component that I have to do to understand what's possible to try to solve issues. And ideally, the community conversation is right in line with the solutions. But what I'm finding right now in the housing is that our conversation, we're not all saying the same things yet about what will work. I mean, that's normal that we don't all say the same thing ever. But in housing in particular, there seems to be a really active disagreement amongst my constituents about whether more housing means we're solving the problem or whether it has to be the right kind of housing. And my research is showing me that the more housing idea is really trickle-down housing, and I don't think that works. I think you are just favoring developers and you're driving the rates up, where a one-bedroom that's 450 square feet now costs almost $3,000. That actually affects the people living in affordable housing because their rates are also tied to the market rate. So I think that these developments are actually harming my constituents, and I think that we really need to have counselors who are willing to do their own research and not just defer to what a consultant has told our planning director, which has told our planning board, which is deciding our policies.
And Ms. Loisel?
I think we need more housing desperately, and I think it makes sense that it's close to downtown. I think this is about making room for more people to join us. And, you know, like I said before, I lived in many different apartments in Northampton, and some of them were ugly buildings, and some of them were nice two-family homes. And, you know, we have a variety of housing in Northampton, so we're building more housing, and it's going to be more variety of housing. I do think I understand why some residents are upset about the density of some of the housing developments that are going up. They are allowed, but I think that if I were on the council and residents were upset about a proposed development, I would try to broker a meeting with the developer and the residents and see if they could just talk about, are there ways that this can work for you and for us? You know, that doesn't always work, but sometimes it does. And so, yeah, I think that this whole idea about the character of a neighborhood, who gets to say what the character is, like, like one of the buildings I lived in, I thought one of the buildings I lived in, I thought, when this building went up, people probably didn't like it. But by the time I lived there, it was like part of the neighborhood, and we had gardens. And so I just feel like we need more housing. It's a crisis.
Thank you. We'll move on to closing statements, 1 minute each. Ms. Rothenberg, will you start?
Sure. So thank you so much to the League of Women Voters. Thank you, Alex. And thank you for covering Northampton as best you can. I know you're on a very busy beat. You can find out more about me if you go to my website. It's quaverlyforward3.com. And my platform is called Picture Side Streets, because I really want us to see this government looking at all of us and all the places that we live and work and investing in it, making it good for our kids, making it good for wheelchair users, everybody, and really thinking about what are the most urgent, pressing priorities we have. I think we need to do some more of that kind of thinking. And my office hours are 7 days a week, always have been. I have an office in Thorns. You can also email me. You can call me. My number is 925-999-0990. And it's really like on call. I will make myself available when you need me. Emergency or appointment. I'm your city councilor.
Ms. Loisel?
If we just agreed on everything, democracy would be so easy. But There's not unanimity about anything, not among the population of a city or the residents of a ward or the people who share a house. My campaign team of more than a dozen people disagreed on matters as controversial as infill and as trivial as when to put up our lawn signs. But we worked together because we agreed that it's less important whose opinion wins the day than that we stick together as we work to find solutions. I don't believe I have all the answers, and for that reason, I appreciate hearing a diversity of opinions along with people's rationale for those opinions. When trying to find solutions to difficult issues, it's as important to work alongside people with whom you disagree as it is to work with people with whom you agree. When we're open about our differences and understand there's not one right answer to our problems, we have the best chance of finding solutions for the common good. Our democracy and our community needs that. I ask you for your vote September 16th.
And Mix Taylor.
I'm going to hit a couple points I didn't get a chance to address in questions. First, as you may have guessed, I am not a big believer in binary thinking, which probably explains my gender. Yes, that is a joke. I'm sad that our table didn't get the question about divesting from Israel and other folks committing human rights violations, as well as a weapons ban that would get L3 Harris out of our city. That may well be done before the changeover in city council, given that there's a couple of resolutions that are coming up in support of exactly that. So maybe it'll be a done deal and I won't have to put action about that. I would love that to be all set. My website is acetaylor.com, first and last name. For reaching me, if you want to hear more about my platform, acetaylorward3@gmail.com or 413-341-2004 are all ways to reach me as well. I promise to get back to you within 2 days because I do need sleep and work and food. I appreciate the chance to get to speak in front of everyone here, as well as everyone watching on Channel 12, as well as online, and everyone viewing this after the fact. Democracy is a process, and more information means better decisions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take another break, maybe 8 minutes. Could you please find your way back to your seats so that we can get started again? Okay, we're going to start again, please. We have found a Florence Bank debit card on the floor. It's back at the back table. If you're missing your debit card, please stop by the league table at the back of the auditorium on your way out. Otherwise, we'll try and find you through the bank. Okay, I'm not going to go through the whole spiel again. I just want to point once more to the timekeepers for the candidates, and to thank again our panelists, Alexander McDougall of the Daily Hampshire Gazette, and Jean Cherrick from the League of Women Voters of Franklin County. And I'm Kathy Campbell from the Amherst League. So now we have 3 candidates for Ward 5. And as before, we will start with opening statements, 2 minutes, then questions from the panelists, 90 seconds each, and a closing statement at the end. And please hold your applause until the end and let the candidates take full advantage of the time we have available. So, starting opening statements, and this is a reverse ballot order. We'll begin with Ms. Davis, please.
Very short, so let's see here. Can you hear me okay? All right. Hello, I'm Aileen Davis, candidate for City Council for Ward 5. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for arranging this very important event. I am in my 2nd term as one of your at-large school committee members, and I retired in June from 27 years of teaching, 25 of those in public school. I think that the combination of my school committee and classroom experience would be meaningful additions to the council. Not only have I dug into the details of the budget and workings of Northampton schools, I have also spent a career dedicated to teaching and caring for children. I could add a unique perspective to issues that come before the council. A primary responsibility of a city councilor is to provide constituent service. I'm prepared to listen to questions and concerns, provide accurate information, and to respond in a timely manner. One of the complex issues that is facing our city is the need for housing at all levels. I would use the tools available to city councilors to collaborate with advocates, organizations, and those within the city structure to make progress to find stable and appropriate housing for our fellow community members. As an elementary school teacher, I had to do a lot of things at once. I had to be prepared and organized. I had to be a good listener and be compassionate. I was collegial and cooperative. I had to have a sense of humor and a great deal of patience. I was a leader and a role model. These are also, I believe, requirements for a successful city councilor. At a time of ongoing fiscal challenges, I believe the City Council could use a member with both classroom and school committee experience so we can increase our collective understanding and work more collaboratively toward our shared goals. While I am an experienced teacher and committee member, I am less experienced answering questions like this. I was going to say some more. Thank you.
Mr. Murphy.
I apologize, I'm getting over a head cold, so if my voice cuts out, you have my apologies for that. Being a city councilor is not a soapbox for your personal political views. Being a city councilor is competently overseeing the operation of a $145 million municipality that provides vital services to city residents and taxpayers. Services like police, fire and emergency medical care, water, sewer, streets, education, and parking. From the building department to the Board of Health, the City of Northampton touches almost everyone's life on a daily basis. You deserve a city councilor with experience who can bring the knowledge and expertise necessary to do the job right. Northampton is getting to be an expensive place to live. We just received major increases in our water bills. The median property tax bill is $7,487 for fiscal year 2025. In her budget message, the mayor indicated she's likely to request a Proposition 2.5 general override in the spring of this year. A general override is a permanent increase of the tax levy that can then grow by 2.5% each year thereafter. This can be a major burden for those just starting out or seniors trying to live on a fixed income. In January, there could be only one member of the council serving that has been through an override. I have served as Council Finance Chairman through both the general and debt exclusion override votes. I have a good working knowledge of Proposition 2.5, the Northampton budget process, the Massachusetts municipal finance laws and regulations. I believe the City Council should meet in person. In my experience, debate is more comprehensive and the issues before the council are dealt with more transparently with in-person meetings. Councilors are well paid and receive health benefits. They should be expected to show up for in-person meetings. In our last municipal election, over 75% of those registered did not choose to vote. I regularly hear from people questioning the direction of our city. You do have a chance to make a difference. Invest the 15 minutes it takes to vote on election day. Thank you.
And Mr. Rotello.
Hi, so my name is Vincent Rotello. I go by Luke. That's probably how you've heard me on the doors. I am a 24-year-old working class organizer, co-chair of the Western Mass Club of the CPUSA. I am a tenant here in Northampton, and I'm running on the basis, MAGA is attacking the foundations of our democratic, social, and civic life. Billionaires are running our federal agencies and in turn impounding billions of dollars. ICE is targeting our most vulnerable community members. It is a period of profound crisis. I believe Northampton must stand as a bulwark against fascism. This starts with fully funding our services, ensuring that recurring municipal revenues are committed to our recurring social needs, in particular in our schools. I believe that our practice of politics and our civic institutions must be democratized, and this includes matters of capital planning, many of which have been devised behind closed doors. I believe firmly that Northampton must be affordable for everyone, and that everyone has a right to live here. That includes youth, elderly, that includes working families. We all have a right to live here with dignity. So in defense of working people and of our civic life, and in the name of a popular front, I'm asking for your vote on September 16th and November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. The first question comes from Alexander.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here today. I'm going to start with the same question I led off the last two times, this is a very historic election in that there are 22 city council candidates, which is the highest that's in recent memory. Can you talk a little about, you're all, I know, Mr. Murphy, you at one point were a city councilor, but can you all talk about why you've all decided to become involved now and run for public office, and what do you hope to accomplish if you are elected to the position?
Mr. Rotello, will you start?
Sure. So I am a service worker, and I have been very actively keyed into Northampton city politics In the entire time that I have lived here, I've routinely attended city council meetings. I have paid attention to the minutes, to the proceedings. One of the consistent issues that I have seen is working people like myself in various facets of society, in particular our teachers, and, various other municipal workers, especially union workers, have been boxed out of civic processes. We've been, pushed to the sidelines and really not given the space or the time to make our needs heard and for our needs to be thoroughly understood. On that basis, I think that working people need a voice. We need a voice in city council. We need a voice in civic life. We need a voice in regard to our democratic institutions and democratic processes. Now more than ever, we have a decisive role to play in resistance to Donald Trump and the MAGA movement, and that starts with seeking a powerful working class position in all facets of government.
Thank you. Mrs. Davis?
Yes, as I said before, I'm been on the school committee for 2 terms. I'm currently in my 2nd term. And in that position, I have, on a personal level, found it fascinating to be this engaged at this level. And I would like to expand that level of engagement. As I stated, have just retired. There's no way that I can imagine doing this. I would have been setting up my classroom all day today. So I am newly retired and can offer my time. I want to use the tools as a city councilor to help move Northampton forward and all the many, many things that we need to do here in the city, and this was an opportunity to possibly do so.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
Well, this isn't something that just popped into my head, community service. I was appointed to my first committee in 1978 by Mayor Dave Musani. That was the committee that brought cable television to Northampton. I've been serving in some capacity either as a committee member or an elected person ever since then. I spent 14 years on the Northampton City Council. As I mentioned earlier, if I go back there, I'll be number 2 in seniority only after Councilor Labarge. So, and I'll never catch her. Trust me, I'll never catch her. But I know completely what I'm getting myself into. And I think I know the council's missed something without having me there. I mean, I am a budget wonk. Ain't gonna be nobody in that room that knows more about the budget than I do. And the thing is, one of the big jobs of the council is to keep an eye on the mayor and the budget. And you got to understand the budget to hold your own with the mayor, because the mayor has a finance director to help her out with that. So, this just didn't pop into my head. I've done it for a long time, and I'd like to go back and do it again, because I think they did a really good job at it, and I think people benefited from my knowledge in finance. You're all getting your tax bills, and they're only going one way. Thank you.
Jean?
Please share your thoughts on the city's bond rating and stabilization funds. What role do they play, and what is their importance to Northampton's finances?
Well, Mr. Murphy, that sounds like it's up your alley.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the bond rating is important because that controls the interest rate we pay when we borrow money. So if we want to build something and we're AAA, we get a much better rate than if we're not AAA. So that's where the bond rating comes in. As for the stabilization funds, and it was mentioned earlier with Mr. Narkowitz's stability plan, when he'd get an override, he'd plan to save money, save money from that override for a couple of years. So in the first few years, you'd be putting money away, and then at the trailing end of it, you'd be going into your reserves to sort of smooth out for the taxpayers the effect on the tax rate. So it would go up and it would stay up. I think one time he got probably almost 7 years out of one of those, which was rare, probably because there was a lot of new growth, so there was a lot of found money from new growth. People were building things. But those stabilization funds are really important, and they're for different things. There's a capital one for putting roofs on buildings. There's one for people. They're for different purposes, but it's one-time money. You can't use it on recurring expenses like salaries. You got to use it for unexpected things, and you got to have it there. Thank you.
Mr. Rotella?
Yeah, so one sort of direction that this takes me is in regard to our use of free cash and where free cash actually comes from. So I think that given the situation with our public services being as they are, and with, this year, our recurring revenue, the excess recurring revenue sitting at about 5.3% of our overall budget, that is higher than is demanded by the charter, and it also does not meet our social needs. Now, at the same time, we are paying for many of our capital improvements. Of course, every city has two budgets. We have the operating budget and the capital budget. We are funding many of our capital projects in cash and under-relying on our exceptionally high bond rating, which comes from, again, having some of the largest reserves of any municipality in the state. So there has to be a certain, first of all, our orientation has to be fundamentally toward funding our services and meeting our social needs. But at the same time, we can stand to finance more than we do, and to rely on that as a means of funding capital projects rather than paying for them in this very inefficient way, which is balancing our budget really on the backs of our kids and our teachers.
Ms. Davis?
Thank you. I would very much understand if many people in this audience say this is extremely complicated, and it is. However, the main thing that I understand is that it's really good to have a good bond rating so that when we need to borrow for capital projects, for example, it costs less. That's the easy way to understand it, basically. It makes sense to have a stable budget. In the past, before we had the stability funds, it was much harder to plan, and this affects all aspects of our community, including teacher contracts and all kinds of pay for workers, which I know that sounds like we all across the board care about. Thank you.
Alexander?
Yes, staying on the topic of finances and budgets, the school budget obviously has been one of the more prominent aspects of the overall city's budget. Last 2 years, the spending on it has increased. However, there were still reductions in staff and services, which has led to some pushback. Do you support providing more money for the schools? If so, how do you propose to do so? And if you don't, why not?
Ms. Davis, would you start on that, please?
Sure. I fully understand. Oh, thank you very much. I fully would want teachers and children to have all the things. Absolutely. And I know exactly from my lived experience what it's like to not have enough in my classroom and what it feels like to know that I have everything I need for my students and for myself, to have a professional wage, and all of that's very important. There has to be a balance, I believe, for the entire community so that students in this school year are as successful and have everything they need as much as students in 5 years in Northampton Public Schools and in 10 years. It has to be sustainable, and a large percentage of the city budget does in fact go to schools. It has to be sustainable. Thank you.
Mr. Rotella, please.
Yeah, so I would actually start by concurring with Ms. Davis on the matter that we do need strategic planning. And one of the actual issues that we have seen, certainly in the course of this term of the City Council and the School Committee, has been a reticence of the city council in particular to meet with the school committee and to move in the direction of establishing a longer-term strategic plan. Of course, we are under a number of pressures, with certainly the federal government moving to sort of tear out the floor from underneath many of our most fundamental social institutions. But we must, within our means here as a community, as a city, we must work collaboratively to strategize on this matter. We've seen nearly 30 positions cut from the school department in the past 3 fiscal years. That is a crisis. It's a crisis that is understood as such by our teachers, by our parents, by our children, by our superintendent. Widespread across the city, it is understood, and this is incurring enormous social costs which are compounding year over year. It is opening the city up to litigation, and we are not meeting the fundamental needs of our children. So, understanding there's limited time to answer this, there are a number of directions that I want to take this. I'm hoping to find more time later in this conversation, but I believe we need to look into, for instance, seeking out a pilot program with Smith. That's one very important angle for raising more revenue. We also need to dedicate the recurring revenues that we do have to our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Murphy.
Well, Northampton is more complicated than some communities. We spend roughly 55% of our budget on education. But what people sometimes forget is we have 2 school districts. We have Northampton Public Schools, and we have Smith Vocational. So we have 2 school districts, which kind of makes it a little more confusing. And the other thing that's not in that 55% is capital improvements. See, we do capital improvements for both Northampton Public Schools and Smith Vocational High School. Smith Vocational gets tuition from other people, but the campus belongs to the city. So their roofs, their windows, their heating systems, all of that is, if they burn a building down, that's all on the city of Northampton for capital improvements as well. What concerns me is all of our city employees, and I'm really uncomfortable with the fact, I support the teachers, but I also support the public safety workers, the police and fire, and the public health people, and the general government people, and the people who work for central services, and the people who work in public health. I'm really uncomfortable with the fact that the road we're going down seems to be creating 2 classes of city employees. We need them all. They're all important. They all work hard for us. And I think it's very unfortunate if we try to separate one group of people as being somehow different from the rest. We need them all. We should take care of them all. We should make sure that all of them get the best we can give them as far as salary and benefits, because they do work hard for us, and I want to see them taken care of.
Thank you. Jean.
What will you do to help seniors to be able to afford to live in Northampton?
Mr. Rotella.
Someone in the crowd said it. Rent control is a great place to start. I guess we can start right there. We should strongly support efforts at the state level, including a potential ballot measure that would advance rent stabilization measures in 2026. We should, if that is approved, if rent stabilization becomes legal in our city, we should work to implement a strong program of protections. I believe that it should go far beyond that, though. I believe we need stronger eviction protections. I would like to see, for instance, a housing production plan. And that's not even for instance. A housing production plan is actually something that is pivotal that our city needs, that establishes a systematized logic of what new housing will look like to ensure, and new affordable housing for that matter, to ensure that we actually have a plan for what rents will look like in 5 or 10 years, so to ensure that we have plans for what our city planning will look like in 5 or 10 years. Again, that's constrained by the federal condition, but to the best of our ability, we need to plan around strong protections for all renters. Again, this comes back to Northampton being for everyone, young and old.
Mr. Murphy?
Well, the most difficult thing for seniors that are on fixed income are the property taxes. That's a real killer. You bought a house in 1985, you paid $175,000 for it. You don't want to move out of it, but it's currently taxed at $875,000. And you got to choose between paying your taxes and eating fancy feast. It's not a good choice to have to make. That is a real problem. But let me tell you, rent control is not the answer to that problem, because rent control would actually raise the taxes on single-family homeowners. It really will, because over 80% of this city is single-family homeowners. If you reduce the income from rental properties, their value goes down. If their value goes down, the taxes they were paying now go somewhere else. And when 80% of the city is single-family homes, that's right where it's going. The math from that is very clear. You rent control, you reduce the value of rental income property, their value will go down if their rents go down, their taxes go down, so the taxes they aren't paying go somewhere else. And with over 80% of the city being single-family homes, that's where it's going, guaranteed. The math is plain as can be. It's unfortunate, but the best thing we can do for seniors is try not to raise their taxes more than we need to, because the options if you sell your home are really expensive because the cost of construction today is outrageous. It's really hard to go somewhere cheaper than when you are where you are already.
Ms. Davis?
I want to give a shout out to an organization called Northampton Neighbors, which is a wonderful free, can be fun program that I would want to make sure folks know about. That does not pay anybody's taxes, but it's still a great organization. Property taxes absolutely are something that I hear about a lot, and it's something as a city councilor that I would keep my eye on that ball. I think one of the reasons that I was interested in running for city council, again, has to do with a feeling of I want to do something because of what's happening in Washington and federal government. And I think that, again, having reserves, thank you, is important because we need to support the possible cuts that seniors may be facing with food and housing, and to be ready to help as needed possibly. I think we want to make sure that transportation, collaborate with PVTA as needed to increase transportation for folks that aren't driving. That's a start.
Thank you. Alexander?
There are some critics of the current city council that say there needs to be more transparency within city government. How do you respond to that view or that criticism? And what is your communication plan if you are elected to represent Ward 5?
Mr. Murphy?
I think one of the criticisms of the city council that's there now is they seem to be in constant lockstep with the mayor. You know, there's many things they unanimously go for. And part of what the city council is supposed to do is question the mayor. I mean, that's our job. You know, we're supposed to be the people that hold up the documents and the ordinance and things, say, wait a minute, what about this, what about that? And the council has been, for the 4 years that the current mayor has been there, very much in lockstep with the mayor. I don't think they question the mayor enough. That to me seems unusual, and I think that's what people think of as transparency. You know, they don't ask questions. Everything looks good, everything looks okay, yeah, we can go along with that. And I don't know, it might be lack of experience, it might be the fact that, you know, this is a one-horse political town, and if everybody is really, you know, all in the same boat on the same party, maybe they don't want to ask questions. I mean, I've never belonged to a political party. And what's been going on lately, you know, makes me sure I probably never will. I mean, that neither political party is acting particularly well at the moment. But, you know, I'm not going to back somebody just because we're in the same party or, you know, I want them to vote the way I do on something. I'm very apolitical. I'm for running an efficient city and doing things well. And I'm very happy to question the mayor. I'm very happy to do that. I served on the council with her, I know her.
Mr. Rotella?
So I should just briefly note that Mr. Murphy is on record as opposing the practice of what is known as opting in, which is a measure by which, it's encoded in state law, which, where normally city council is only able to remove items from a budget, remove components of a budget, it allows the council to actually add to specifically the school budget, turning the budget itself into a site of negotiation. So I would very much, back to the point of the question, I would consider myself to be one of those critics. And I would say one of the most important tasks that we have as, in terms of the council as a democratic body, is to make it a more robust site of political life, to ensure that constituent engagement is at the core of what we are doing, to ensure that democratic engagement is at the core of what we are doing. I think that is our most profound obligation, in particular in this moment. We should understand more than ever the necessity of checks and balances, and that is something that the City Council has the ability to do, and so far has not. So I would like to see that as well. And one final point, very briefly, on the matter of capital planning, it takes place with what is known as a SIP committee. This committee is met behind closed doors and put forward capital planning that is then more or less rubber stamped by the City Council. I believe that we need to change that and open up these processes in the name of the vast majority of our community.
Ms. Davis?
Yes, the question was asked about an appearance or seeming lack of transparency, and whether whether we agree with that, and what would be our communication with our constituents. And so that is a primary focus of what I would want to continue, that Alex Jarrett has begun with robust constituent service. It's a very important part of the position of a city councilor. It might look different, but it's very important to get back to people when they write to you, when they call you, and point them in the direction where they need something. I think two things I really want to point out is it's very important to me, if I were on city council, to always be thinking about who's not there, who doesn't write to me, who's not coming to these meetings, who's really busy, or doesn't even know about the meetings, and what do they need, because they're still in, for example, Ward 5. The other thing is, and I clearly don't have time to answer this fully, but I was in my first term on the school committee on the capital planning. I was the student, this school committee representative, and it was very transparent.
Thank you. Let's see. Jean, no?
Do you believe that the city should be using its resources under the direction of federal immigration enforcement agencies?
Ms. Davis, will you start with that?
I was just going to ask, can you say that again, please?
Okay. Do you believe that the city should be using its resources under the direction of federal immigration enforcement agencies?
I'm not positive I understand the question. I think that it's asking if we should support the immigration.
Well, I think...
I'm really sorry, I'm not positive I understand. If we should be using our resources to support them?
I think that's what they're asking.
If I understand the question, no. I don't think that we should be supporting the immigration services. And I think that that's what, at least in part, what being a sanctuary city is about. And so I guess the short answer is no.
Mr. Murphy.
My answer is no. I don't think law enforcement at any level should ever do anything illegal under any circumstances. Not now, not ever.
And Mr. Rotella.
My answer is also no. My answer is that we have seen horrific actions taken by ICE and other deputized authorities across our state. They have acted in flagrant contravention of the law, which seems to be completely beyond anything that this administration is interested in. We have seen, raids in which, and I'm thinking of a particular case in Worcester, where city officials, elected officials, have attempted to intervene on behalf of their constituents and been arrested and we've seen police actively collaborating, Worcester police actively collaborating with ICE and, again, other deputized authorities. And that's a crisis. I think that when documentation, when a warrant signed by a judge is not produced by ICE when they refuse to identify themselves, that should be understood as kidnapping. And all authorities, municipal, state, et cetera, should be compelled to intervene as such. And to that point, I think that we need to sort of take a more expansive and broader program in regard to protecting immigrants in our community, and that will start with creative and collaborative coalition building with various organizations that have been doing this work for a long time.
Thank you. Alexander.
Yes, so in 2023, the city acquired the former First Baptist Church to convert into a resilience hub that is meant to address the city's unhoused population, provide services for them, as well as to provide shelter during climate-related emergencies. Do you support the city's approach to addressing those issues via the resilience hub, or do you prefer a more alternative method?
Mr. Rotella, will you start?
So last year, there was a fairly high-profile incident in what was known as Moose Camp, which was a community of unhoused residents over in Ward 1. This was a camp that existed on what would become Habitat for Humanity property. They had intended to develop it. It became a sort of flashpoint in a lot of ways, and what I recall was the sweep of this camp, which took place with multiple police departments, coming in, taking people's belongings, putting them in trash bags. Those trash bags ended up at what we know as the Resilience Hub. And that took place, I brought this matter during this current fiscal year's budget hearings. I brought this matter to our current Health and Human Services Director, and I said, there had been this sort of presentation of, we're doing a great job, we are doing a fantastic job on behalf of our unhoused population, and I said, is that really fully true? And the response that I was met with was shockingly, it was like this was not something that had ever been posed before. Like, oh, this was like we aren't doing things as we're supposed to be. Maybe people are upset about this. So in short, I do not believe that we are doing enough, not even remotely. I don't think that our current approach is actually taking place with serious dialogue with our unhoused population. It is being imposed upon them.
Ms. Davis?
To start with the Resiliency Hub itself, when I think of that, I think of the church that was purchased, and I think that it is a very exciting, aspirational effort to provide place for food and shelter, a place for dignity for people that are unhoused. It's an asset for the city currently. And yes, funding is necessary to finish the space, but my understanding is that it's a lovely place inside, and it's, I support definitely better communication and signs of some kind to let the community know the status of the project, the reason that it was purchased, and something to really be proud of. And All of that, a lot of it is on the website for the city, which is excellent, but not everybody looks there. And communication would go a long way. Thank you.
Mr. Murphy.
This thing is the biggest boondoggle I've ever seen in all my years with the city. I finally got a chance to look at the appraisal the city commissioned and tried to go to talk to the mayor about it, but I couldn't get an audience. I finally got to talk to Alan Wolf, the mayor's assistant. And I told him, Alan, you cannot rely on this appraisal. It is totally bogus. They bought it anyway, okay? It subsequently had a review appraisal done of it by citizens who put up the money to do it. The review appraiser said, this appraisal is bogus. It doesn't meet standards. So the building was subsequently reappraised and came in at half the value that the city paid for it. Half the value, okay? The original appraisal quoted Eric Shore's estimates to finish the building, okay? Hardly the gold standard, okay? They're in the appraisal. The city didn't do its due diligence on this till after they owned it. It's going to take millions of dollars to fix this thing. And we don't have millions of dollars. We won't have to use grant money, except there is no more grant money. So we're upside down in this thing by $1.5 million. It's going to take more than that to finish it. It's something we never, ever should have gotten involved with to begin with. And it didn't include a housing element. It wasn't going to house anybody. It was a drop-in center and an office building. We don't even know a way to heat it. They can't even get natural gas for the thing because the gas is shut off.
Jean.
Some years ago, we changed our system of governance, giving the mayor more power, lessening the weight of the city council. Do you agree with the current system, or do you think we should reconsider?
Ms. Davis, would you start that?
I support the current system of government. One alternative is a town manager, for example, that's been suggested to me when I've talked with people about this kind of thing. Typical town manager arrangement is an appointed person who ultimately has the last word also. And then they can't be voted out. It's a whole different process. I think that we have a representative system of government, and I support a city council that collaborates with the mayor and negotiates with the mayor, and I would submit that the people on the current city council have differences of opinion and collaborate, and it's okay to agree sometimes, I support our system of government.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
Well, the fact remains, July 1, a new year starts, and you have to have a budget for July 1. That's why when the city council doesn't vote to approve the mayor's budget, it's still the budget. That's why it's that way, because the city has to keep going. So if the city council is more involved in creating the budget and the city council is not getting along and the city council can't come up with a budget, the city council couldn't even vote to approve the budget that got stuck in front of them this time. There's got to be a budget, which is why it is the way it is, unfortunately. I wish the city council was more engaged with the budget with the mayor. People were talking tonight about the fact, well, I'll spend money on this or I'm going to spend money on that. They don't say where they're getting the money from, and they never recognize the fact that they can't. The mayor has to choose to do that. If the mayor doesn't put it in the budget, all the council can do is cut things, not add things. So you got to work with the mayor all year long in the creation of the budget to get things put in there you might want. Because it's really important, July 1, there's a budget. Because July 1, there's a tax bill, and July 1, there's paychecks going out to city employees. So if you change it around, you got to do it in a way that doesn't result in gridlock. But as I said, when the council can't even vote to approve a budget that's stuck in front of them, you got big problems if the council has a bigger role to play and they're not getting along. Because life has to go on and the city has to function and services have to be provided and people have to get paid.
Mr. Rotella.
Yeah, so I would absolutely contend that our current administration, mayoral administration, has in many sectors of society been very reticent to engage, to meet with constituents. It's taken significant work to even make contact. And I see that as eroding the fundamentals of democratic life in our city. A lot of this comes back to democratic process and again, democratic life. So I see this coming council term as being really, really important in establishing a sort of stronger means of checks and balances. Again, this returns to opting in, turning the budget into a negotiating process, a more meaningful one where the council actually has a say and is not only left to cut things. I think that this is part of establishing a stronger system of checks and balances, and it takes place fully in view of the 2029 Charter Review, with a sort of eye for what we can do to further democratize our city's civic life.
Thank you. So we'll do closing statements, 1 minute each. Mr. Murphy, would you start, please?
Thank you. If I rejoin the council in January, I'll be one of 9 councilors. The only way I'll have an impact on council policy is if I can convince my fellow councilors that my position on a matter that we're debating has some merit. What I miss most about being on the council is the ability to participate in debate on important issues that affect the future of our city. I have spent the last 47 years as a volunteer, a committee member, an assessor, and a councilor. I've worked and learned from hundreds of others in that time, and I've amassed a knowledge base about how our city functions. I've seen what works, what hasn't worked, and I've learned to respect others' opinions and formulate my own opinion on their advice. I feel I can bring the value of that knowledge base to good use by returning to the Northampton City Council. I thank you for the opportunity to participate in this evening's forum, and thank the League of Women Voters for making that possible.
Thank you. Mr. Rotella.
So our country is in a profound state of crisis, of a very broad social, economic, and political character. That crisis has snaked its way into every corner of our lives. In Ward 5, we have new neighbors who have come here as refugees from Republican-led states. And I would say this to them, I would say this to our entire community, there is no way out but through, and there is no way out but together. And it's bound by our commitments to dignity, equality, and justice for all working and oppressed people. It really, for me, it has always come back to this slogan that comes from the Poor People's Campaign, just forward together, not one step back. I'm hoping to take a first step forward together with you in September. Thank you.
And Ms. Davis.
A meaningful quote for me is from the late Congresswoman Pat Schroeder from Colorado, who says, "You can't wring your hands and roll up your sleeves at the same time." And at a time like this in our country, I am ready to roll up my sleeves. So I think this is a wonderful thing that we've all gathered here to participate and think about what we want for Northampton. I commit to constituent service, an open mind, and a listening ear. And I thank you, and I will do all I can to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Nice to meet you both.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and be sure to check out the resources that are on this slide and then at our back table. And good night.